Now, hours after IBM CEO Ginni Rometty congratulated Donald Trump on his election victory and offered to work with him on economic goals, IBM software engineer Daniel Hanley drafted a petition. The document urges Rometty to do what's right for IBMers. This includes respecting employees' rights to refuse to participate in any government contracts that violate constitutional and civil liberties. Of course, the petition has more than 100 signatures now. Since Trump took charge, executives at companies including the Cleveland Clinic, Facebook and Uber have come under internal pressure to answer not just for their policies but also their politics. Now, employees like Hanley are pushing bosses to sever their personal or professional ties to the Trump administration by registering their dissent with protests, walkouts and open letters. Now, Nick Harper joins us from New York with more insight into this. Nick, as always, welcome to the show. Now, we know Trump's administration is barely 2 weeks old, and it's already whipping up quite a lot of division in the country. Companies such as Uber and Amazon, as we mentioned, have been the targets of political protests. CEOs like IBM's Rometty are facing internal pressure. How are we seeing the consumer and certainly business in the country impacted by all of this?
Well, we are certainly seeing this internal pressure within the companies themselves. Often there is this divide between the CEOs and the actual employees. Sometimes the CEOs may be Republican leaning, whereas the employees are not. And that was certainly the case with the IBM the case that you mentioned just a moment ago. I think part of the issue here is that the Republican Party as a whole is seen as being the pro-business party. And Donald Trump, indeed, during campaigning, said that he was going to do a lot to help the US economy, to bring jobs back to America. But there are many things that he promised that he hasn't quite followed through on yet. He talked about lots of government spending, renewing the infrastructure in the United States, and also promising tax cuts. Those were good campaign promises, but they haven't been translated into policies just yet. In terms of Wall Street, certainly Wall Street has had a huge boost since he was elected back in November, a significant rally over the space of several months. But since he came into office, went into the White House just under 3 weeks ago, we have seen some volatility in Wall Street, with often Wall Street looking to the White House for direction. So there is this divide between consumers and businesses, and at the moment there is certainly a distinct volatility and uncertainty about the exact direction of Donald Trump's economic plans.
Now, Nick, we've also seen companies railing against Trump's executive order, which of course bars immigrants from 7 Muslim majority nations. Silicon Valley, for example, where tech companies rely on foreign talent, have been quite vocal about this. What side of the divide are American companies coming out on?
Well, it really is a mixed picture. Those tech companies that you mentioned, some of the biggest, like Google, Facebook, Twitter, Microsoft, they have all come out against Donald Trump. Indeed, they led a petition, a court filing against Donald Trump. More than 95 companies came out saying that they opposed the travel ban, stopping those high-skilled immigrant workers coming into the United States, many of them that the Silicon Valley big companies rely on. Indeed, Apple said that it wouldn't be the company that it is today without those immigrant workers. But we've also seen some companies coming alongside Donald Trump. Just 24 hours ago, the software maker Intel was at the White House with Donald Trump, promising $7 billion worth of investment, building a new factory in Arizona and creating about 3,000 jobs. US car companies have also come alongside Donald Trump, promising more production in the US. And then there are some companies that are clearly very torn. We've heard from the retailer LL Bean. Initially, one of the owners of that company was being investigated for giving large donations to the Trump campaign. Then they said they were going to try and be apolitical. But after the travel ban happened, LL Bean said that they were opposed to it and they would do all they could to help their employees if they had been affected or their families affected by that travel ban.
And Nick, the consensus seems to be that Trump is pro-business. For example, we did see him working to dismantle the Dodd-Frank, yet he has been openly critical to some of those businesses who he views as anti-Trump. Now, we saw him today going against Nordstrom for dropping Ivanka's fashion line. Now, is Trump about business or about Trump?
Well, I think that is the central question, and it's also a question that is worrying a lot of people within the United States, whether Donald Trump is acting in the interests of the country and the economy, as he should do as president, or whether he's acting in his own best interests and also the interests of his family business. By becoming the president, he said that he would sever ties with the family business, his business empire, and that also meant that he was meant to sever ties with parts of the business run by his children or individuals connected with the family. But here we've seen him weighing in when Ivanka Trump's fashion line was dropped by one of the retailers, Nordstrom. He came out saying that they were very unfair to do that. Now that worried Democrats, but it's also worried people who look at ethics, saying that Donald Trump as the president shouldn't be getting involved in this type of thing. And there has been this worrying trend where he's been standing up to companies that he doesn't agree with. He's called out companies who've moved production overseas, like car companies who were setting up factories in Mexico, and also called out Boeing. They're building Air Force One over the next few years, the new design of that. And he said that the costs were too high. And when that happens, when he calls them out, normally on Twitter, we do often see that their share prices drop ever so slightly, but they do drop as a result of his tweets. So there is this worry that the president, who shouldn't be meddling in individual businesses, is doing so. And that really could affect his credibility as president.
Well, many thanks for those insights, Nick. Of course, Nick Harper joining us there in New York.